Ladies and gentlemen, we will now commence with the panel discussion, Building and Sustaining FMCG Brands in a Post-Pandemic World, for which I would like to invite the moderator, Ms. Soumya Mohanty, MD, Quantitative and Chief Client Officer, South Asia Insights Division, Cantor. Panelists, Ms. Lulu Raghavan, Managing Director, Lander & Fitch India, Mr. Parag Kulkarni, Managing Director, A.O. Smith India Water Products, and Ms. Gitika Kambli, Managing Director, Future Factory.
Thank you. I guess that's the cue for us to start. So we have a very exciting lineup of panelists right now to speak on a pretty exciting topic, building and sustaining FMCG brands in post-pandemic world. I was told you will be introduced. I'm happy with the introduction you got. Otherwise, let me just do a two-line introduction for each of you. So Parag, starting with you, Parag is the Managing Director of A.O. Smith India Water Products Limited, and he oversees the India and the SAARC operations. Parag focuses on innovation, new product channel development, and investment in building e-commerce channel, which has ensured that A.O. Smith grew ahead of the industry at all times. And Parag, I use A.O. Smith, so I can vouch for that. A.O. Smith was also conferred Great Place to Work in 2021, and you were acknowledged as one of India's top 25 leaders during times of crisis by Great Places to Work organization. So that's a lot of achievements, and also as 100 most trusted CEOs of India. So welcome, Parag. You is Managing Director of Lander & Fitch, and has a lot of extensive experience in all areas of strategy, brand expression, brand strategy, cultural transformation, brand management, and brand performance. You are a part of the Global Management Board of Lander & Fitch and the APAC leadership team. You are a renowned industry commentator, and you've anchored Bloomberg's UTV Beyond Logo Show, and you're a speaker and a moderator. Today, you are not the moderator. In a lot of brand and design conferences. So welcome, Lulu. And finally, Gitika, we meet again.
Thank you.
So Gitika works at Future Factory, and she leads the design strategy practice. So she works across research, design, development, and helps craft innovation strategies for the world's most influential brands, and has over a couple of decades experience in behavioral sciences with quantitative modeling and digital technology to explain user behavior to frame strategic direction. So welcome, everyone. And what we are going to discuss is how do we build sustainable FMCG brands. COVID has obviously impacted all of us and changed the way consumers are making decisions, changed the entire consumer journey, and maybe also the contract that consumers have with brands. So without wasting any more time, let me just come to the crux of the panel. I mean, this is something I picked up, that the industry is expecting double-digit growth on year-on-year basis from 2022 onwards. What do you think this could be attributed to? Maybe we'll start with you, Parag.
Okay, I think always good to start hearing that double-digit growth is around the corner. I guess we get surprises every day, like when we got up in the morning. So I hope those surprises are not too many this year. We have had enough in the last 2 years. But yeah, I guess not looking into immediate what is happening. One of the reasons why I feel, and I guess the industry is a little more optimistic about 2022, 23 in terms of growth is fundamentally for a consumer durable industry. I mean, if I have to look at real estate impacts the industry in a significant manner. So let me look at it that you have new construction coming in, new housing coming in, as well as you have existing things getting modified and changed. So if I look at 2022 and the positive trend over there in terms of new housing, because whether you're talking any household, durable items, whether LEDs, refrigerators, washing machines, air conditioners, or what we make, water heaters, water purifiers, vacuum cleaners, a boom and a good situation in housing handover creates an absolutely great market for all the brands. Yeah. So 2020 saw COVID hitting the country, migration of laborers, resulting in projects which were coming in for closure not happening, and hence those handing overs did not happen. Same is the case in 2021, beginning when the second wave hit. It took a lot of effort to get the confidence for people to come back to urban centers and finish the completed projects. And I guess the labor situation and all has improved tremendously. Normalcy is more or less back into the urban India. And I guess housing and handing over of projects is happening at a good pace. So the backlog of 1.5, 2 years is coming into 2022, which is a good positive development. The other is, of course, I guess finance plays a big role. And I guess interest rates are at their best at this moment. And housing loans and others are very, very attractive. Government has made a lot of effort. The finance ministry and the banks are putting in their bit over there. So that is another positive trend. The other we, of course, know is that the pandemic has really put a lot of, I guess, a lot of churn in the household. What do I mean by that is earlier what people who could live in a 2-bed now want to be in a 3-bed or a 4-bed house, because work from home is now more or less a norm. Even if it moves that you have to get back to work, you still will have about 30% of the population working from homes. So home is more a reflection of office. You need space and you need a lot of things, to keep you over there and entertained and all that. So I guess a lot of brands would do well because of people spending more time at work. Earlier, we were spending 11 hours, 10 hours in office, 3 hours on travel, 7 hours of sleep. You hardly were there at home. But today, most of the time, we are all at home. So home is where your heart is, your office is, everything is. You need a break. In offices, in campuses, you could go into breakout zones, meet with colleagues. Now you're hanging out more at homes. People are coming there. So various things. So those are things happening. Also, companies have innovated and there's a lot of new products coming in by understanding the evolving needs of the consumer. So I can keep going on, but I guess I would stop over here because a lot of people will have a lot of things to add. So that's where I think.
That's very, very interesting, Parag. I think you touched upon the macro factors. You also touched upon the consumer factor. Lulu, maybe I'll come to you and maybe you could shed some light, especially from the consumer end. Why do you think this growth is going to sustain, if it sustains?
Sure. As Parag was talking, I was also thinking, am I going to be left with anything to say? Because he so beautifully covered many points. But if we start thinking about just demand and supply and the mindset shift, Parag alluded to how the pandemic has created a fundamental shift in mindset, both on the consumer side as well as on the business side. So on the consumer side, we're sitting at home more, sitting too much, actually. We need to get up more and move more. But the increased focus on health and wellness, I think, has also forced us to evaluate things like air purification at home, air conditioning, and how that impacts the air, vacuum cleaning, right? We're all at home. And of course, many of us didn't have help for a long time. I remember actually going to all the websites and thinking, what's the easiest vacuum cleaner I can get within 5 days to my house? And I was really surprised to see how quickly many of the brands had pivoted to direct-to-commerce websites, content, even WhatsApp channels being easily available. So that keenness around how my hygiene is important, how these consumer durables contribute to that, I think was there. Beautification of the house as well started becoming more important, and some consumer durables, played more to that. What else? When you're buying more frozen foods, so then you're relooking at refrigeration and whether your refrigerator is actually playing the role it should. I would also say in non-metros, the growth has been due to e-commerce and how much they've reached out, the plans that they have, how easy it is for consumers to purchase and buy. Brands have paid a lot of attention on e-commerce, their shop fronts on e-commerce, how attractive they've made it. Also, in terms of mindset, the whole self-reliance, Atmanirbhar, if you will say, is a huge mindset shift. Indian consumers were never DIY consumers. So, I alluded to vacuum cleaners, there are lots of other categories there as well. I would also say the emergence of the woman shopper has also contributed to the growing demand, and overall a much more discerning Indian consumer. And that has also created demand for a variety of goods. And when we talk about players and what they've done, we'll speak about innovation. But that's on the demand side. On the supply side, I believe that a lot of companies and brands have really started thinking about 360 omni-channel strategies where the emphasis is on convenience of purchase for the consumer. So innovation in digital, but also ways for the consumer to get the products. And then, of course, if you talk about rural and non-metros, government policies around electrification, I think, is a huge boost to the sector as well. And so in the years to come, that will, it's not another avenue of growth, it's truly the frontier of growth. That's the way I see it. Would love to delve more into the consumer side specifically, but let Geetika come in and then we can have a discussion around that.
Yeah, and you actually found a lot to speak about. How you were able to correlate the consumer trends with what's happening.
I try to squeeze it all.
So Geetika, do you like to add something?
I try to squeeze it all in there, but I'm sure Geetika has.
Yeah, so Geetika, please do add, and maybe you could open up around which of these trends do you actually see as lasting? I think a couple of them that Lulu spoke about, hygiene and DIY and vacuum cleaning your own house, but maids have started coming back. Air purification. So how do you see these last? And then we can again go around and have a chat on that. And anything you want to add on this itself?
Yeah, thanks, Soumya. Thanks, Lulu. Good comments, just proceeding, and thanks, Parag, as well. I think everyone's really covered the main points. It's just one I'd like to add here, and it's not really about the pandemic. So what we've seen, I think the summit is aptly marked FMCD, right? And we saw that move as more and more industries become consumer focused. We've also seen the FMEG, right? The fast moving electrical goods industry. And we're seeing a lot of investment, like venture capital investment happening in these areas. We're seeing a lot of professionalization taking place in traditional localized brands. So I think this movement has been some time coming. And, as companies tend to become more user-centric, the role of the influencer kind of decreases. So brands and categories that have essentially been user-focused and more influencer-driven, making that shift. I think that's gathered movement. And we can see that gathering a lot of movement. Like water heaters, for example, I think Parag will talk about how in the last 5 years, there's been this huge shift, right? In terms of users playing a very active, engaging role in the purchase journey as compared to what they would do like a decade ago. Fans, for example, are already there. I think one of the trends that might be interesting to look at, though Lulu's covered most of them, is the one on sustainability. And, we've seen this a long time coming because, I remember doing pricing studies in 2019 where, where we wondered whether the user would be willing to pay that extra differential for an environmentally sensitive brand, right? And there are two things that have happened. One is that consciousness has actually taken place, finally. And we're not talking about a very small sense of a small niche, very elevated, income-oriented consumer base, but we're seeing this across the strata. I think, and there could be a large number of things that have led to it. The fact that we're actually seeing the effects of climate change in our lifetime. And I mean, there's a behavioral science principle that talks about how you tend to take action when you can see this impacting your lifetime or that of your own children. So I think that could be one of the triggers that's taking us there. But two, it's also the movement, that the UN started up with the sustainability goals, and a lot of governments have picked up the electric vehicle movement, alluding closely to what Lulu talked about in terms of the electrification industry. So, BEE is actually now a norm, right? I mean, the 5-star ratings, etc. So how do you actually, you're kind of compelled to make things a little more sustainable. I think that's now irreversible. And both from a consumer behavior point of view and as a driver for the industry, I'm just, Parag struggled to buy an under-the-counter water purifier, and A.O. Smith was the only one that did that in UV. Right? So literally the only brand that actually offered, a water conservation option. on that brand. So I think a lot of those things are going to pick up as well going forward.
Right. So that's interesting. And Parag, therefore, I would actually throw this question to you, back to you, on some of these trends. Are they actually going to last? I mean, you spoke, for example, Geetika spoke of sustainability. Is that something people are actually willing to pay for in a value market like ours, which is still about value and about convenience? Do you see that shift?
Yeah,
What
see,
else do you see? Yes.
see, we are all business people, marketeers, corporates, and we are also consumers. So I always try and look at things from my point of view. I mean, I'm a consumer, right? Ultimately. So what does matter to me? What does matter to my family? And what Geetika said, I mean, it was excellent. I would say we are at a situation over here where all things being equal, a brand which focuses on sustainability will catch a consumer's attention and a consumer will choose it over others. But soon, I guess, I mean, so today, if I'm talking about a water purifier, because Geetika talked about water purifiers, and it's a known fact that when you purify water, some part of the water gets lost because it's not, I mean, it's cleaned up and all that. So we, I mean, and again, I'm not trying to put forth AO Smith's case, but I would just try to go back about 4 years back in 2017 end and 18 beginning. We took out our entire range of purifiers which were in the market and replaced them with a product series called Green, because they were the, I mean, India's best in terms of water recovery. And there was a lot of pushback from our team because the product was little expensive, because you cannot bring in an innovation and a technology shift on this area without really investing in that product. But believe me, our sales went up. Our sales also went up. It's not, I would not say that the sales went up only because of sustainability, because a whole lot of other things that a consumer basically needs out of that product has to be met and better. And then when he or she is able to compare everyone at a platform and then say that this is standing out because this is for the future. And I have children now who are grown up and adults, but over the last 10, 15 years, I remember they telling me and my wife that you guys are responsible for the state of the world that we are in. And you are going to leave behind a more difficult planet for us. And we will have to make all the sacrifices for your profligacy. So those were children who were 10, 12-year-olds kind of thing telling me. And I'm sure that is the case in every household. In every urban household, every educated family, there is discussion points around it. And the consumer behavior is being changed by the education system, government, focus. So I have to just go back to Diwali. 12 years back, we used to have so many crackers being burst. How many crackers are being burst now? And why is that? Because the school educates the child. And the child tells the parent, no more cracker bursting, I don't want it. And same is the case with Holi. So I guess this sustainability, there is no irreversibility to the sustainability. Everyone who sees themselves doing business 5 to 10 years from now, they have to make that investment today. If they are not into it, they are not on the consideration set for the consumer. Very clear in my mind on this issue. Yeah.
Sure. Lulu, what do you think? I mean, if we move a little away from sustainability and look at other trends, do you think we are going to go back to where we were, or are things like certain things have permanently shifted?
No, absolutely. Things have permanently shifted. And I'm not just saying it based on anecdotal evidence. I don't know if you have seen the Accenture report that just came out. It's a global study of consumer habits that have fundamentally changed. And in that study, you can learn that 71% of Indian consumers, so there's global data and there's Indian data as well, have changed habits. They have reimagined behaviors and values. And interestingly, the segment of consumers that have changed is significantly more in India, 71% versus many other countries where that cohort or that segment size is 20 or 30%. You can download the report from Accenture.com, full of rich insights. And what's interesting there, Soumya, is this conversation we were having around price. But the Accenture report says that beyond price and quality, there are 5 factors which are important for consumers across the globe, including India: health and safety, service and personal care, ease and convenience, product origin, and trust and reputation. So these are the factors which have come forward as extremely important to consumers, and that brands can see that the underlying motivations have changed significantly. So in your categories, it's really thinking in the category that you operate in, it's thinking about those accelerating behaviors during COVID, the pandemic, those that are lasting, and those that were perhaps only transitory. So these are common across the board, but of course it would be different by industry. But there is fundamental change. I couldn't agree more with Parag, who said that sustainability is not a flavor of the month. It is fundamentally changed business. And just as digital transformation was the core imperative of the 2010 decade, now if companies don't take sustainability seriously, they won't be sustainable in the long run. I think the needle has really moved significantly on that. And Kantar has a lot of data, both globally as well as in India, that shows that shift.
Absolutely, Lulu. In fact, Kantar has a lot of data on sustainability, but also this last year, when we did Brandzy, we found brand purpose as one of the key drivers of equity. In fact, it was 10 times more important in India than in the rest of the world. So yes, there is definitely a shift. But I will again probably throw a little bit of a provocative question. So one of the things that seems to have happened once COVID has sort of dissipated is there is this urge to really come back. So people are indulging. Lot of categories in FMCG, for example, which are pure indulgence, have gone through the roof. People are coming out. Experiential categories are going up. So is that something that you see happening even in FMCG? Because that's a very big marker of having arrived, right? Whether it's a big refrigerator or the latest washing machine or microwave. So do you actually see the standard aspirational India still holds, or have we really started sort of cutting back? Whoever wants to go first.
Parag can answer this more from a brand perspective, or we can answer. I can certainly answer it more from an agency perspective.
Why don't you go, Lulu? Then I'll come to Parag, and why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, all of the brands, what we hear from them is the emphasis on more innovative products has been there from their side, but that is being created to meet the ever-increasing aspirational and lifestyle needs of the consumers. So the desire to upgrade, to get to the next level, is absolutely something that this category is seeing across brands. And so then the imperative becomes on the brand to innovate much faster and to also come across as more aspirational, right? Not just a price player. I think that segment of consumers who value something more than just price is increasing significantly. And so a lot of the consumer durable brands are rushing in to create solutions, brand content, and presence to meet those increasing lifestyle aspirational needs of consumers. And this is not just a metro story, increasingly a non-metro story. And I would tie it back to the pandemic by saying that staying at home also increased our media consumption. So the exposure to lifestyles, that increasing aspiration and desire also comes from that increased media consumption, both in India as well as Bharat.
Absolutely. Geetika, do you have your hand raised by any chance? Is that what this means?
I do, actually. I think it's funny to have a hand raised during a panel, but before.
But go ahead, and I'll come back to Raya. Go ahead.
I wanted to add a comment, which I was hoping Parag could also kind of add to, in his response when he speaks. I think, to Lulu's point on the aspiration, as an emerging country, I don't think that aspiration is taking a serious backseat, because it's a very long-term trend, right? As economies are progressing, we become more developed, there's more disposable income that's likely to continue. I'm just saying that the nature of that aspiration seems to have changed a bit, right? So one aspect, like you said yourself, Soumya, Kantar finding out that brand purpose is important and sustainability, etc., being one part of that aspiration. But even that second bit on technology, and there was a time just till about, I think, 5 years ago, when the bigger the TV, the more the aspiration, right? And we all saw that, right? I mean, as less as about 8 years ago, the 32-inch being a sign of middle class and everything larger, being bigger. But now it's really about what that technology can achieve. It's not just size. It's not a bigger fridge or a bigger TV. It's not moving from a DC to a frost-free, but, can I do more? Like all those ideas about how you can move a freezer into a non-freezer and vice versa, how you can have flexibility to use that appliance or that durable in a much more meaningful way. So somehow that move on the durable category, on the aspiration, has become the technology lever. And because, so much digital can do now for us. I don't know, Parag, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a very interesting point, Geetika. So I have quite a few responses. I don't know how to piece them together. So they may seem all over the place. So one is, Geetika, you're spot on. India has that show-sha kind of a customer also, which is big means better. But I guess today, technology and really the bragging right is on that I side with, I possess, I showcase, I use the best technologically advanced products and gadgets. I think that is seriously, I mean, this is the trend and there is no reversibility on it. Yeah. And over here, I think the consumer. So who is a consumer? So we have, so I don't get into baby boomers, millennials. So let me say 20 to 35-year-olds, 35 to 50-year-olds, above 50. Where is money? So certainly 35 to 50, really someone who is got richer in the last 5-7 years is potentially going to get richer. There's a lot of money over there. Definitely with the startup boom, and I am based at Bangalore, and we know that in Gurgaon and Pune and other places, startup boom is really big, and people are millionaires, closing in on billionaires with so many unicorn stories, and every unicorn has huge amount of employee base who are getting richer. So, but each of these consumer is different. So when I say that, what I feel is that the 40 to 50 year possibly generation, large part of them came from tier 2, tier 3 towns, got educated there, high middle class value systems. They got into the right industry, worked hard, and are into a good situation where there is a lot of disposable money. But because of their grooming and the bringing up and the value systems, I think they are uncomfortable with the thought of having a lot of money and money to be seen and shown by overt display of those things. So technology gives a good option to them to go into a right product, not the big flashy kind of a thing. Yeah. So they are being led by their children who possibly are educating them. It's fine. You've worked all your life hard. Now take it easy. You can spend some money on yourself. It's fine. You don't need to carry a guilt. Yeah. So I guess this is a battle in the minds of that consumer. But for the young generation, the newer generation, and that is really the generation which is going to shape up the country and all that. I think experiential, way of life, they are not really looking at 10 years, 5 years from now. They say, today is the day. How do I live a better life today? And what do I do? Because the future is good for them. They know it. because I think everything is moving well, India is doing well, etc., etc. So this generation is absolutely clear about their priorities, that anything which conveniences them, anything which makes their life easier and better, anything which helps them, live a better life, they will put money over there. And I think that's what the brands have to understand. Who do they appeal to? So whether a Sony Bravia appeals to a 20 to 30-year-old, I'm not sure the Sony team would know about it. They certainly appeal to people of my generation. So they need to reach out to people like me to get into bigger TVs. But this generation, they watches most of their things on iPads and various gadgets and all those things. Television is not their area of investment. So they are really into tech and various gadgets and gaming areas and anything which helps them get that kind of a feeling. So that's what I feel. But for sure, everything in the right direction on technology. IoT is absolutely important because that is what is going to drive a whole lot of things. And we are seeing this trend. And this is not just urban, because I think today you cannot say tier 1 is largely different from a tier 2, because those aspirations are fairly consistent everywhere across.
Sure. I think from bigger screen, we have moved to smaller the screen, the better it is. I guess that's the shift that we have made. I think we have been talking so much. I'm just looking at the time, and in interest of time, and there are some audience questions as well. Let me just sort of ask you the last question, and we can go around and you can contribute. It's a little different. And the question struck me as we were sort of discussing. If we are saying that this is a sort of experiential generation that's coming up, how do you therefore see the role of gadgets and ownership of physical, tangible things for a generation that is into shared economy, shared spaces, shared everything? So how will these things actually retain their will they remain identity mark in that sense? Maybe Lulu, we could start to go to Parag, and Geetika, you could round off.
Yeah, I think in this sector, with all of the categories that we are thinking about, I can't imagine a shared economy solution. I think these devices, if we just think about mobile phones, and they've almost become an intrinsic part of us, right? Of our own identity. What you have and what that signals about you, I think, is extremely important. That will apply to some of the choices of brands that you make in the categories as well. So for me, the way I interpret your question is the onus on experience, I would say, is on the brands, because the way we are able to so easily order things, whether it's a Swiggy or a Zomato or an Amazon, those e-commerce brands, the unicorns that Parag and beyond reference, are really setting the standards for the consumer in terms of experience. And so the similar expectations will be on this category as well, in terms of discovery of the brands, in terms of interaction with the brand. So if you think of the consumer decision journey for FMCD, I think there's an opportunity for brands to really relook at how consumer needs have changed at every stage of the journey, how they can be a lot more 360 in delivering of the experience, and how they can truly look at the physical touch points, the human touch points, and the digital touch points of the brand to create an overall experience, even if you're in a category where the consumer might be used to interacting with you in just one channel. So I think brands have an onus to think about experience for the consumer through all of these lenses. That's the way I interpret the question. I'm not so sure that the shared economy per se and the implications of that is directly connected to ownership of these kind of category products.
Agreed. I think you have interpreted it in the right way. Maybe we can carry that forward. How do brands create an experience which is, let's say, beyond what the product delivers in terms of its functionality? Parag, would you want to, and say something about around that, or
Yeah.
anything else? There's closing comments, maybe.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I will give some examples by way of what we have tried to work on, and that possibly kind of addresses this area well. So even a pandemic time normally is a tough time to launch new products, but we were brave enough to launch a product in our water purifiers, and we called it Pro Planet. I mean, no, it's very rare. Normally, you have all tech sounding names, Megatron, this Tron, that Tron. Our product is Pro Planet because it gives you highest recovery of water, and it gives. So this is a lot of time. So at the point of sale, we have a lot of inputs going to a consumer, and on digital medium through YouTube, etc. We are providing this information because today's consumer makes up a lot of consumer make up their mind through all this, what they see, observe, and get before they even come to the store for making a call or decision. So all those were given, but did we leave it at that you have already made the consumer convinced that this is a great product? No. So the product is designed. So we use a great designer, external designer for designing this product for us. And what we did is, so the consumer is also looking at a bit of a high in terms of their choice and what they made. I won't call it a gratification, but getting a feeling of high that they put their money on a product which is good for the planet. So what we have done is that, and that is where I'm talking about experience. So every day you consume water. So we have a digital panel which tells the consumer with each water or whatever literage of water usage, how much water they are saving. And then at reaching a particular point, there is a green leaf which lights up on the display panel of that product, and it kind of gives a sound and there is a light up. So when the consumer draws water, he or she gets that high saying that by using this purifier, they have saved water for our planet. So no, I'm talking about today's consumer wants to have that experience, not just the knowledge that they invested in a product,
Right.
but something like this. And because they are pro planet, would they want to show to their near and dear ones and friends that, see, this is what they have done, and influence that? Because they are also big influencers, in my opinion, on various people around who they touch. So that's something just by giving an example, I hope I am able to bring forward that I'm sure we are not the only ones. There are a whole lot of people who are doing all these kind of things. And this education and this investment is important because the consumer today is really looking for that.
No, absolutely, Parag. And we are really, I think, going to run short of there. We actually round it off by asking you one of the questions. And Parag, there is a question which has specifically been asked to you. So there is a question around some light can be thrown on serviceability of FMCDs with respect to sustainability and the cost of maintaining it. I'm not very sure if I understood the question, but Gitika, would you like to have a go at that?
Sorry, can you come again?
Serviceability of FMCDs with respect to sustainability and the cost of maintaining it. Is that, maybe it's a trade-off kind of a question? That is there a trade-off between sustainability and cost of maintaining?
Kamya, what I understand from that is a lot of the regulation and sustainability adds to the cost. So it is seen as a pressure. And that's how I interpret the question.
Sure. So what is your view? Any one of the panelists can,
Well, nothing comes cheap in life. And I think there is a price which everyone has to pay for everything. And I think this is, if at all, there is an incremental price, if at all, for anything. That's the least and the very minimum price that one must pay for making this world a better place going ahead. So I think that's what I would say.
Nicely put, Parag. I'll just add a little. Yeah, I'll just add a little bit to it. I think it just also tying up with your earlier question, Soumya, I think service is an important part of the consumer durable industry. Unlike the FMCG industry, which is more consumption-led, because this is an asset, service has always been critical. You know, we know that there are large number of service of consumer durable companies who gain a large proportion of their revenue from service. I think what we are seeing now is kind of innovation on that service part. It's right, what we call service design, right? Understanding how you can reimagine that service experience. And on price plus platforms like sustainability or premium appliances. I'm going to talk about a very niche one. One of the things that the pandemic threw up, which we've missed today, is coffee machines, right? You'll be surprised how many small machines have become affordable at 30,000 rupees, etc., at a high-end a small kitchen gadget. And these are heavily serviceable. The service cost is huge. So I think people are getting used to paying for service, sometimes even more than paying for the product. And over a period of time, I think that shift is going to happen. Like Lulu said, how brands are actually changing the needle from owning the asset to experiencing the brand, moving the needle from the cost of the asset to service models is also happening. And to Parag's point, I think people can see the value to enhance that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I've just been informed that we could have an extra 6 to 8 minutes, if that's okay with the panelists. I think we have some extra time. So maybe if it's okay with all of you, maybe I could actually ask the question I wanted to ask in the end. And there's one more audience question we can take, if it's okay with all of you. So maybe Lulu, you could probably start with this. Any consumer sensitivities that you feel that we should be careful about going forward in future as FMCG brands?
But I think the big one is inclusive design, right? Are the products designed for all genders, all orientations, all abilities or disabilities, right? I think the usage of those have traditionally, the innovation around them have traditionally had a very male lens. So when it comes to product design, and I'm not just talking about aesthetics and pinkification or pinkifying of products, right? But truly the functionality of it, both from a gender perspective and also from a disability perspective. I think inclusive design is a huge area. No doubt sustainability is one, but sustainability at a price that consumers can afford. Of course, we did talk about the fact that it will be a premium initially, but I think the more companies and brands are able to convince consumers on the sustainability imperative, and more consumers embrace, the cost of products can certainly go down as well. So I would say inclusive design and sustainability that is more affordable to allow consumers to experience the joy of sustainability, how it makes them feel, will be important. And then the third one, of course, is wellness, health and wellness. So every brand can be a health and wellness brand. So if we think about hygiene and health and how the products and the categories of the experience impacts that, I think those would be three areas that there's a lot of rich exploration for innovation in those three buckets, in my view. Those would be the sensitivities that I would be paying attention to if I were a brand. Inclusive design, sustainability, and health and wellness.
Health and wellness. Yeah, Geetika, anything to add there from a design standpoint?
Yeah, I think I'm going to use the word user experience again. That's something that came up a lot of times, and I think consumers of all age groups. I'm alluding now to, well, age may be the wrong word, but I'm alluding to Parag's cohorts, the way he marked them out, because they represent different cultures that our consumption industry exists at for India. I think all cohorts are going to be absolutely impatient and unforgiving when it comes to a digital experience. right? And we see a lot of consumer durable companies for whom the digital experience is not natural. It's a new capability, right? So, I mean, we have our products up on the web in Amazon and Flipkart, and then we have our own website. And that e-commerce doesn't work. They're unforgiving. Or we have our, customer service aspect, which is being serviced by a chatbot, and we screw up there. They're unforgiving. But the flip side of that is fabulous. We've seen small niche brands in the area of electrical and small durables come up and, succeed and become like, 500 crore brands in a matter of like a year or so, simply because they've managed to get a good digital customer experience. So I think that is something that's here to stay. It's a leftover of other industries that, this industry has to deal with.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Parag, I'm actually going to ask you the last, there's an audience question specifically for you. So I'm going to just ask you that question, and we have exactly 4 minutes.
It's not that, why are you the only male in this panel and the moderator?
Not at all.
I consider it a big honor. So,
So we have exactly 4 minutes. So maybe if you could take 2 of those 4 minutes. So this is actually about trends in small appliances, is the way I am reading this question. Any shifts in kitchen appliances and growth that you are seeing in cooking, baking, grilling, stoves, etc., especially from a COVID standpoint. And the second question is, as you alluded to housing sector, how has the FSI and high-rise building norms have made R&D at your organization respond to this to make better consumer durables, long-lasting durables? 2 minutes, if you could just.
Yeah, so I think in terms of small appliances, what Lulu is saying, that basically design plays a big role in terms of customer usage, handling, ergonomics. So those aspects are very, very important. Tactile, I would say a lot of those products are ABS or plastic based. So when you touch and feel, do you get a repulsiveness, or so what quality of resins, material, what molding you are using, when you touch it, do you feel nice? So all these are very important, because those are all part of giving you a direct sensory kind of a feel of a high or a low. So I think in kitchen appliances, that is very, very important. The other is high-rise building. Does it change? In our industry, yes. Especially in a water heater industry, we invest a lot of effort in R&D, because higher rise is fine with us. Low rise, a lot of places where there is less pressure could be a little challenge in some of the fields. On a water heater side, a high rise can add to the pressure on the machine. And if you are not designing your tanks and other things in a water heater to sustain that, then there could be serious repercussions in terms of functionality as well as danger to that. So, I'm sure every top corporate, every good company takes care of all of those kind of things and is investing their time and effort to design products, knowing that this is where they are going to be used.
Absolutely. And this has been, I think we are like absolutely bang on time, and this has been really, really interesting. We could have just gone on and on. So I think I'll just try to summarize it. I'm not sure because there was so much spoken, but if I was to broadly pick up what I sort of am taking back is this industry is definitely going to have some period of long and sustainable and profitable growth. And that's because both the macro factors, which the economic indicators are great, the housing, as housing grows, as Parag, you started by saying, there will be growth in appliances. But also a lot of the micro factors, the consumer shifts in consumer behavior and attitudes and habits. And absolutely with you, Lulu, some of these is probably permanent towards health and hygiene, towards wellness, sustainability, to a better user experience, the expectation of better user experience, digital. These are things that are going to stay, and that is also going to lead to sort of changes in changes that are probably good changes for this industry for sure. So thank you once again for this really, really interesting panel. And I hope you also had a good afternoon. Thank you. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, speakers. Thank you, speakers. That was truly an invigorating discussion.